Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to you. What day is this video going out? Right, I'm recording this on Friday, so a very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. Wow, it's been 2 days, but I'm back with a bumper package. So in the past couple of days, we've seen even more great footage from Superman 2025's on location shoot. We have seen Guy Gardner in a blonde wig. Wow, that's awesome, isn't it? Really exciting. We've had so much Superman flying a little bit practically. James, I like the practical stuff. Hopefully it looks awesome when he's flying. He's saving a white kid and he's saving a black kid. Great diversity. I like that. That's brilliant. We've seen Hulk Girl, which is also very exciting. One thing's for sure, seeing all these beautiful location photos, this is the excitement. I'm feeling the hype now because this is how I got excited for Superman Returns, seeing all the pictures, and it really is an exciting thing. But I don't want to talk about the on-location situation. I want to put my focus today in talking about Nicholas Hoult's Lex Luthor, why Nick has been cast, what type of Lex Luthor he will be, and I believe he will be the most controversial, different Lex Luthor take yet. There's been some very interesting versions of Lex Luthor. I think he does capture the imagination of writers in the comics and in live action and in animation, because he's very interesting. Is he an authoritative, racist, bigoted kind of Hitler figure, or is he something else? He's someone who believes he's the hero of the story. That's one thing you must understand about Lex Luthor. He doesn't see himself as a villain. He thinks he's the hero. There's a brilliant moment in Smallville when Lex talks to Clark about the legend of Namor and Sagif, who's supposed to be kind of an analogy of Lex Luthor. So, he talks about Namor having fire coming out of his eyes, having the strength of 10 men. And he goes, anyone who would fight him would be pretty brave. And then he says to Clark, maybe the hero of the story is Sagif. That is Lex Luthor. He believes that Superman is a threat. Not a villain, but a threat. He understands that Superman isn't a bad person, but to him, you see, the thing is, Lex Luthor doesn't hate aliens. He hates that they have power. He worries about what that power can mean. And also, it's not all kind of, oh, I want to be the hero. He wants that power for himself. He believes to keep the world safe. But there's a little bit more to it than that. So Lex Luthor to me isn't, I suppose he could be seen as a Nazi figure, but I don't think that's what Lex Luthor truly is. He's a very psychotic, crazy guy who genuinely deludes himself in thinking he's the hero of the story. And now in terms of Eisenberg, we see it, not necessarily that he thinks he's the hero, that he thinks that Superman has too much power for different reasons than we've seen before. The reason everyone loves Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor in Smallville, because it has so much nuance. It's a bit like Anakin in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. You start off with an innocent, good boy. Slowly you see the evil grow inside him. And the reasons for that, he can't handle loss and things like that. It's very similar with Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor, where you see this guy who's not perfect, but he's not evil. But what you see within 7 seasons of a story arc is the evil growing inside him. That brilliant Christmas episode, Lexmas, where he has a chance to, in this alternate reality where he's with Lana, but then she dies in childbirth. So he decides he must destroy Jonathan Kent to become senator to gain the power to never have such heartbreak again. So this is what happens. So what about Nicholas Hoult? Nicholas Hoult, I believe, was chosen by James because he has this pseudo creepy factor, comedic factor to him as well. Now, a lot of people these days say, well, I don't like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, it's too funny, it's too this. No, Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor is different to Rosenbaum's, but it's still very good. He's a villain. He's out to make money. He's a crook, right? He's funny, but he's also evil. After all, he does try and kill Superman, and he's very clever. He knows how to use those missiles. So I do think he's a valid version of Lex Luthor. A little bit dated, but I still enjoy watching Gene as Lex Luthor. You have the one in Supergirl, who was also very, very interesting as well. I kind of liked him. That was an interesting one. So let's get back to Hoult. Now, many years ago, I did speak to Nick, and you know, he's a very interesting guy, and he's a very, very interesting actor, and his way of acting is very, very different, but he does intellectualize what's going on. So he will be looking at this very, very deeply. So what kind of Lex Luthor is this going to be? I believe this could be the most controversial version of Lex ever. I believe you're looking at a Dr. Victor Frankenstein stroke billionaire business owner. And I think that's going to be a very explosive, interesting combination, with James Gunn many months ago hinting at magnifying glasses. So what is he going to be experimenting if he's this kind of Victor Frankenstein stroke billionaire business owner figure? I think cloning is going to be a big thing in this movie. Obviously, I said on my other video, I believe most, if not all, the versions of Superman we have seen are all clones, and we haven't seen the real Superman yet. It's why the costume doesn't fit properly. But deeper than that, I believe we will see the beginnings of Connor Kent, Superboy, the beginnings of him, right? The cloning of him. I think this is what this film is also leading to as well, which will be very, very exciting. I think it was an opportunity missed in Superman Returns. Bryan Singer had a son for Superman, a fictional one that is not from the comics, called Jason. That could have been, you know, that could have been Connor Kent, and that would have been amazing. So I think Nicholas Hoult will be a very, very interesting, psychotic, scientific, stroke billionaire business owner type of figure in this movie. And I think that is interesting, that is exciting, but it could be creepier than Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. But it'd be different. And because Gunn loves these kind of cruel guys who experiment on people. We saw it in Guardians Volume 3 and what was done to Rocket Raccoon. And I think we'll see similar things done here. He'll use Superman's DNA to create a multitude of clones. That's how I'm seeing this. And I think this is also the dangers of Superman, and how Superman can be a good guy, but people can take advantage of him and cause chaos. And I think that's kind of why Nick Hoult was picked in this movie, because of the creepiness, the pseudo-creepy kind of figure you're going to get in this movie. And I think there will be very interesting kind of dynamic between him and Superman as well. But this is not the Lex Luthor we've seen before. Now, if you go back to the history of Lex Luthor, he was a mad scientist in the early comics and the Fleischer cartoons. It was only in the 80s where they decided to make him a billionaire business owner of LexCorp, because they believed by that stage a mad scientist as a villain was a hackneyed idea. And they decided to modernize the character. And that's why in Smallville, Lionel Luthor's a billionaire and Lex Luthor is a billionaire's son. And it worked, and it was very well modernized, because you may not believe that a villain is really going to be doing experiments on you, but you probably do think he'll screw you financially in business terms, I suppose. So this is going to be the mixture of both versions. We know there's a Luthor Corp or Lex Corp or whatever it is in this movie, right? But we also know from the hints that James Gunn's thrown that this guy is going to be into the science. Now, Rosenbaum's Luthor was involved with kind of research and getting clever scientists to do experiments, but he wasn't scientifically knowledgeable himself. And I believe that this Lex Luthor absolutely will be. He'll be science knowledgeable. He'll be doing a lot of the experiments himself. And, you know, as I say, this will be a very, very different type of Lex Luthor, and which makes things very, very kind of intriguing, because you don't want the same thing. And I think, as I said on the top of the show, Lex Luthor is such an interesting character. If you find a different way of dealing with him from the last way, that's what you want. You don't want another Gene Hackman, you don't want another Michael Rosenbaum, you want an original. And there's no question about it. I won't call Nicholas Hoult a superstar. I won't call any of the cast in this movie superstars, but they're all very, very good actors. And Hoult's casting is certainly very exciting, especially considering I've spoken to him a couple of times, which makes the situation even more interesting because I know how he thinks. He's a really, really interesting guy, and plays really, really crazy characters as well. As a younger man, he played more mainstream characters, but now that's changing. And I think this is going to be the strangest character he ever played. This is going to be the strangest version of Lex Luthor you've ever seen. Because I don't believe he's just going to be cloning Superman. He's going to be cloning other things as well. And all hell is going to break loose. And this makes things, this fascinates me, if this is true. But the evidence is there. The different types of Superman we've already seen on location. Is that Clark Kent the real Clark Kent? Or is he another clone? This will be about human alien cloning. There's no question. That's where Gunn is going with this. So I think when he says that Lex Luthor is the main villain in this movie, it is. And I questioned that when he confirmed that. I said, really? Another Superman movie where Lex is the main villain? It's a bit like having an alien invasion. But we've kind of seen I think we've seen them coming out a ship as well. So I think there's more to this movie than just Luthor. Is Brainiac involved? What's that thing going on in the background as well? That's interesting. And I think maybe in this movie, Luthor knows there's an alien invasion coming and he's trying to create a clone army. Now in Smallville Season 6, which I call the Rise of Lex Luthor, he's creating a kind of kryptonite-infected kind of clone army because he feels an alien threat is coming. As I said earlier, this is Lex Luthor's mentality. So there could be a method to his madness. So there could be an alien invasion coming, Brainiac or something else, and he's preparing for that. But I think, there's going to be a lot of different DC characters in this movie, And I also want to say, Gunn does make, interesting villains. Is it Judo Master? Fascinating guy in that movie. Not a pure villain, but an interesting kind of fun character. But there's a depth to that as well. I mean, he doesn't really say anything in English, but he's an interesting character. Vigilante. I mean, Gunn takes Vigilante, screws up the comic book pages and does something even more interesting with him. Someone who's desperate to have a friend in Peacemaker, but who is utterly psychotic. You can say whatever you want about Gunn. What he does with these situations is very smart. That's why I always say he's a good, capable writer-director, but we should always be careful not to overramp someone's capabilities. And so I do have respect for the man, because this can't just be about what's happened in the past. We've got to look at him, as a director and writer, and he's done some very good things, and I think this will be a very different version of Superman and DC Universe, which is what I've said I've wanted all along. If I want to watch the other versions, I can watch the other versions. There's no evidence that David Corenswet can equal Christopher Reeve in stature, and there's no question where your best Superman hat is. Christopher Reeve is still the Don. He has the height. He has the looks. There's just something special about Reeve when you see him in that costume, and it remains to be seen if Corin Sweat can echo that. And to be fair, I'm not even being fair to David, because no one's been able to equal that. Yes, I like all the Supermen, but no one's been able to equal what Reeve did. And I know Snyderverse fans may go, no, I'm not disrespecting Henry, but he's not Christopher Reeve. No one is. Oh, and by the way, I don't think we've discussed this. Have we discussed this already? I don't know. Christopher Reeve's son, whose name escapes me, will be cameoing in Superman 2025. This is James Gunn being very, very clever. He's got involved with the relatives of Siegel and Schuster. He's got involved with a lot of people at DC Comics, and now Christopher Reeve's son. This is a level of respect we haven't really seen before on a Superman movie. So he's leaving no stone unturned. I just think it's more interesting to do a video about Luthor with, and sprinkling the things that we're hearing about rather than just talking about the on-location stuff, because there's not much to talk about there. We can say, yeah, this may happen, but we don't know. But we can't, nobody's nobody's talking about Lex Luthor or Nicholas Hoult's portrayal of Lex Luthor. And we've seen very brief glimpses of him on location. Gunn has answered a question saying he would never spoil anything. He would never shoot anything for prying eyes to see. And that's obvious. What's going on with this on location? It's a little bit, I think, of a few kind of reshoot things, just things that they're trying to get right. There's nothing really to see, but it's exciting. It's exciting to see versions of Superman. It's great to see Guy Gardner and, Hulk Girl. So that's very, very exciting. And the fact that Christopher Reeve's son is going to be in this movie, oh boy, does he look like Chris. He would have made a great fucking Superman, by the way. But anyway, we got David. I support David, of course I do. And I hope he's a great Superman. So Gunn's creating something utterly different here. It still doesn't mean I know if I'm going to like the totally different here. But what it says is that he's being original. He's being creative. Because Gunn isn't like the other creative bankrupt people in the industry. He still believes in old Hollywood. He's still a very creative guy, and he's going to give us a Superman like we've never seen before. And I think it could be a very interesting launch to DC Universe. Whether that's going to be good, whether that's going to make enough money. I've spoken about the red flags, the things that I've been concerned about in the past, but I've also spoken about the things that excite me. As I say, this is a platform, right? A creative platform for balance. This is not for this or for that. This is not agenda-driven. My only agenda is to see great movies, great TV, and a great version of these wonderful DC characters, and Superman is my number one. And that is what's important to me at the end of the day. And if I say something that kind of goes against one side or the other, that's not me going against that side. It's about me being balanced. So I'm not anti-James Gunn. I'm not pro-James Gunn. He's the one who's been tasked to kind of revitalize DC live action. And we're going to give him a chance, or I'm going to give him a chance to see what he does. If I don't like what he does, I will be genuinely honest with you, my subscribers and viewers. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Normally I do a video every day. I've explained the past week or so my mental health for one reason or the other hasn't been great, and I physically and mentally have not been able to do videos. But kind of the reason I've been a little bit damaged is gone away now, so I'm starting to heal. I won't get into it any deeper than that because I know a lot of you suffer with similar things, and it's not easy for anyone. So I'm going to try and go back to the daily premise of videos. Of course, sometimes it's difficult because there's not much to talk about. But yeah, you're definitely still going to get 2 to 3, 4 videos a week, which is more than most. And what's great here, it's not about edits, it's not about garnish, it's about a guy sitting in front of a camera telling you what he thinks about what's going on in entertainment, especially focusing on DC in this upcoming movie in just about a year's time. Superman, that we're all hyped about, right? If you're a DC fan, if you're a Superman fan, you can not be hyped about this movie, right? And it is interesting, as we see. And I think one of the most interesting situations that's elevating in my mind is Holt's Lex Luthor. So definitely a Dr. Victor Frankenstein, right? Definitely a billionaire business owner, but different. And I think if you look at Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne in The Batman, this is a guy that's just Batman for most of the movie, not interested in the business, right? You can see he's pale because he's not being exposed to sunlight, and I think this Lex Luthor could be very similar to Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, where he's more interested in the science, the experimentation, the cloning than he is in the business. He may even have some clones working for him at LexCorp, so that would be interesting as well. But I do believe he knows there's an alien invasion coming and he's preparing for that. Now, I'm not too sure if Viola Davis is going to be in this movie as Amanda Waller. I think Gunn said she's not, but you never know. I still think Batman will appear in this movie, and I think that might be the first, sighting of him, and I think that's why Gunn is keeping that casting a secret. Imagine if Pattinson's Batman is Batman in this movie. What a shocker. Anything's possible with James Gunn. But I do like what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is interesting. I'm not a fan of the costume, but I'm starting to think that might not be the costume. But if it is, it is. Sometimes it looks good. Sometimes it doesn't look so good. But this is on location. This isn't the final thing. We have to wait. Judge the movie on the movie. If you have an agenda and you don't want to do that, it's up to you. I can't tell you how to think, how to feel, how to conduct yourselves. I'm just trying to save you a lot of embarrassment when it comes to the final release of this movie. So on Nicholas Hoult, I like this idea of a Dr. Victor Frankenstein because it's different. I think it's different, and I think Hoult can play that. This is why Holt's got the role, because he is pseudo-edgy. He can be pseudo-edgy, and all we've seen of him really is the bald head and some cuts. Could it be those cuts are from him taking lumps out of himself to kind of do the cloning with, using his DNA to create Connor Kent and Superman? Maybe that's been the whole experiment through the movie. So he's creating botch clone after botch clone after botch clone, and they're going haywire, but the final clone is a success, Connor Kent. I definitely think if you're doing cloning in this movie, there's no reason why you wouldn't touch Connor Kent. And I think Crypto's interesting, because I think Crypto is in this movie. But I think Crypto will play a bigger part in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. But also, Crypto has been known to be kind of like very faithful to Connor as well. So it'll be interesting where Crypto is. I think they are going to CGI Crypto. I'm excited that Crypto's involved. He's not the most important character, but he's a facet of the comics everybody loves. So finally, because, in live action, Superman has had a dog. Clark in Smallville had a dog. Lois wouldn't allow him to call the dog Crypto, which I was so fucking annoyed about. But clearly, I think they didn't, they were doing something different, Is it the original Crypto? Is Gunn going to create his own version of Crypto? I don't know. But I like the idea of Crypto being involved. Now, there were rumours the actress who's playing Supergirl, again, her name escapes me, sorry, I'm not very good with names, was there to shoot something. Gunn denied this, saying unless she's out on a shopping trip, she shouldn't be there. So, is she in this movie? I think there will be some kind of post-credit tease, very little, but I don't expect her to play a big role in this movie. But what do I fucking know, right? Nothing. None of us know nothing. This is why we're theorizing. This is why I'm theorizing about Lex Luthor. But I think, he's going to have Otis, and I think maybe Otis is a clone. Maybe Miss Tessmarker is also a clone in this movie, which will be interesting. So I'm starting to see the method to the madness. At first I thought, Miss Tessmarker, Otis, why are you doing that? But I think these also could be very comedic, but very interesting, important characters. As I say, this is going to be a very, very different Superman movie and a very, very different Lex Luthor. And something we haven't seen before. And I think, for me, I'm open to that. Because if you're just going to copy and paste what's been done before, are we all wasting our time? We can all watch it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, right? You want a writer-director to come in and be creative and be original, but stick to the spirit of Superman, which I believe he's going to do. One of the things that really hasn't been spoken about, and I suppose I should do a focus on Lois Lane, because she's very interesting, very important character. We haven't seen much of her on location. We've seen a bit, I think, but we haven't seen much of her, which is interesting as well. There was a mock-up of a man and a woman, stunt doubles, I think, flying in the air on strings or whatever it was, and probably that was Superman and Lois, and what kind of dynamic they're going to have in this movie. Because this will test James Gunn's ability. Because for sure, the greatest versions of Lois and Clark were in Superman 78, were in with Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain, and with Erica Durant and Tom Welling in Smallville. I think they're my three favourites that have really captivated and captured that old-fashioned romantic aesthetic. And romance isn't something that Gunn's done too much of. Obviously, Star-Lord and Gamora, which was kind of done right, but again, it didn't really captivate me in a romantic way. So it'd be interesting if he'll be able to pull off. I think Gunn is a very romantic guy. I do think that. I think there is a romance about the guy and the way he sees films and the way he sees things. He can do that, but it's interesting that in Superman 78 it was Tom Mankiewicz that wrote that romantic stuff and did it so well. And the guys on Smallville did it so well because they had other stuff to take it from. So, yeah, I think that's just something I want to talk about finally. But it's not just about the romantic element. Lois Lane can't just be there as a romantic character. Lois Lane is a hero. She is a journalist because she wants to, expose corruption. She wants to protect the readers of the Daily Planet. She's a good person. And the only reason she's a journalist is to do good, to make the world a better place. And that's who Lois Lane is. But she's also a super confident woman as well that holds no prisoners. Done so well in Superman 78, done so well with Terry Hatcher in Lois and Clark, and done very well, outstandingly well with Erica on Smallville. I still think that Erica's got to be my favourite Lois. She's fucking perfect. She's perfect to the tone. She's on key. She's an on-key Lois Lane. You look at the comics, you look at her in other places, and Erica fucking captivated and captured exactly what Lois is. Sometimes it was magical to see how good she was as Lois Lane. Was fucking frightening because she was really, really good. Very sad that she'll never play kind of an on-screen Lois, but she was on the show from season 4 to season 10. That's 6 seasons. That's amazing. And she did a great job. And I think maybe one video in the future, we should focus on each important character of this film. Maybe next should be Lois Lane. I think we will do one on Corn Sweat Superman. I need a little bit more information on him. I kind of understand about Nick Hoult and what he's going to be doing. But David's Superman, somewhat, and Clark Kent, is going to be, so far, a bit of a mystery. But I think he's going to be very different. And this is the beauty of Gunn doing this. He's going to inject personality into everything he does. Whether he pulls this off, I don't know. It's anyone's guess. It's yours. Your guess is as good as mine. But I think he's definitely going to give a good go at it.